two expert talks, and in the evening you will be provided with self-study material, or there may be certain activities which you may be required to perform. So this way we'll be during first half of the day we'll be listening to the expert lectures. We'll be interacting with the experts from different reputed institutions. So all of you might have received the timetable, and you might be familiar with now the topics and the expert names. So, and in the evening there will be no live class. So that assignment you need to do through Google Classroom. So after the start of this session, I will be sharing one code for Google Classroom. So you all have to join that Google Classroom for receiving the self-study material as well as the activities for the day. So in this first session, to start with, we have Dr. Saurav Kushmanda with us. He's very kind to accept my invitation. So Dr. Saurav Kushmanda received BE degree in ECE from Bengal Engineering and Science University Shivpur, India in 2009. Then MTech degree in ECE with specialization in RF and microwave from IIT Roorkee in 2011. And the PhD degree in electrical engineering from IIT Kanpur in 2016. Then he worked as a postdoctoral fellow at Royal Military College, Canada in 2017. He is currently assistant professor in the Department of Electrical Engineering at IIT Jammu. His research interests include microwave and millimeter wave antennas, frequency selective surfaces, and metamaterials. And he has published many papers in reputed journals, and he has attended many conferences. So with this brief introduction, so now I would hand over the session to Dr. Saurav, and I welcome Dr. Saurav to the STC, and I request now to start the session, please.
Thanks, sir, for my introduction. So it is my pleasure to present something basics of microstrip antenna for the today's STC. So since the topic is wearable antenna, so the basics will be like just I will be discussing some of the basic of microstrip antenna, that is also we are calling it as the printed antennas. So which is currently being used in the antenna design, and the principles will remain same even if we are going to bend the antenna in flexible or wearable environment. So although some properties will be altered, but some of the basic principles, like I will be covering some of the basic principles of the antenna design, like linear polarization, circular polarization, and Yagi concepts. So these concepts are widely used. So in the today's presentation, I will be discussing this topic. So brief about the linearly polarized patch antennas, then how to generate the circularly polarized radiation in a linearly polarized patch antenna, then about a dipole antenna, again how to generate a circular polarization in dipole antenna, and lastly about the pattern reconfigurable Yagi-Uda antennas. So I will be covering these topics. So like there will be a brief discussion, like whatever doubts you are having you can note down and we can discuss it at the end of the session. So now starting with microstrip patch antenna. So microstrip patch, like it is in the printed form, this is the most widely used antenna. So microstrip patch antenna, you all may be aware. So here you can see the diagram. So there is a very thin metal strip, okay, in the top, and this thin metal strip, if you the thickness, if you talk about the thickness of this metal strip, that is very small compared to the wavelength, okay, and this thin metal strip is printed over a substrate, and substrate, the backside of the substrate is a full metal plated, and that full metal plating which we call as the ground plane. Okay, so this is the configuration of microstrip patch, and here the thickness of substrate, whatever is is noted by H. So H is between the range of 0.003 lambda naught to 0.05 lambda naught. Okay. And the dielectric constant of this substrate, which epsilon r, it is going to be lying in the range of 2.2 to 12. In general, we are going to take it in this range only. And the length of this microstrip patch is in the range of lambda naught by 3 to lambda naught by 2. So reason for choosing this length is that we want the patch to be a broadside radiator. We want radiation perpendicular to the patch. We can have end fire radiation also, but for that is going to be the higher order mode. So if we are talking about the principal mode, so we will be keeping the length of patch in this range, so that we are going to get a broadside radiation. Okay. Now this thick substrate, we are going to choose a thick substrate instead of thin, because the thick substrate is going to be desirable for good antenna performance. It is going to provide better efficiency, larger bandwidth, and loosely bound radiation into free space. So like thick substrate will be helping the patch to radiate more efficiently. Okay. So but the size of the like patch is going to be large for thick substrate, but generally the thick substrates are chosen for the design of antenna, and we choose thin substrate for design of circuits where we are more interested in the guided, we are more interested in the guided wave propagation. But in the antenna, we are interested in the free space radiation. So we want the thick substrate to be used in the antenna design. Now coming to the microstrip patch antenna, if you if you go with the cavity model of the patch, we will be finding that this patch is nothing but the array of two radiating slot. This is one of the radiating slot, and this is the second radiating slot. Okay. And this radiating slot, the distance between the radiating slot, which is the L, is going to determine the resonance frequency. And the dominant mode for a patch antenna is TMX010, and the resonance frequency of this dominant mode is going to be given by V0 by 2L square root of epsilon r. But we have to maintain the condition like L should be greater than W greater than H, because the dominant frequency is going to the lowest frequency. So if the patch is rectangular, then this L has to be the larger dimension. So radiating slots are basically separated by L, and this L is going to determine the resonance frequency. And again, the feed is going to be in the direction of this radiating slot only. Okay. So we will be discussing about feed in the next slide. So now here we are going to discuss some of the advantage and disadvantage. So advantage of this microstrip patch antenna is that they are low profile in nature, and they are conformable to any planar or non-planar surface, and they can be easily manufactured using modern printed circuit board technology, and mechanically robust on rigid surface, compatible with the MMIC design. So these are the advantages, and disadvantage is there that it has a very narrow bandwidth, and due to which high quality factor is there. So due to this high quality factor, the efficiency is also low, and polarization purity is also somewhat bad compared to the other antennas. And there is some spurious feed radiation, there is some unwanted radiation due to feed. So although we have some drawbacks, but this low profile and this conformable to planar and non-planar surface, these two advantages makes the patch to be a desirable candidate to be used in many of the applications. And since 1970, from its the first advent, it is currently being also used. Although there is many research has been already done on microstrip patch antenna, but still it is popular due to its low profile and low profile nature, and it's easy to print over any conformal and non-conformal surface. So these are some of the like basic shapes of patch, and mostly the square, rectangular, and dipole. These shapes are more popular because we have a easy analysis. Like they can be analyzed very easily, and The fabrication wise also they are easy to design. They have attractive radiation characteristic like low cross polarization feature. Okay, so other shapes are also used, but these square, rectangular, and dipole are more popular. So these are some of the feeding techniques. So first is the microstrip line fed, that is the inset fed also. So inset means we have to cut the proper slots and ins and this embed this 50 ohm microstrip line at a suitable position so that we are able to achieve a proper impedance matching. At the edge of the microstrip patch, the impedance is very high, so inset is cut so that we are going to achieve at a suitable position where the impedance is close to the feed impedance. So feed is generally taken as 50 ohm, so we are going to feed the patch at 50 ohm point. Second is the coax feed, so we are using a coaxial cable to feed the microstrip antenna. Third is the aperture coupled, so it is fed using a multi-layer technology. And again, like proximity coupled, here also multi-layer techniques are there. Multi-layer substrate is used to feed the patch. Now coming to the circularly polarized microstrip patch antenna. So like the in the linear polarization, the like there is a like in linear polarization there is a strict restriction of maintaining a proper orientation between transmitter and receiver, and if the orientation is disturbed, we are not going to get the we will not be able to transmit the power in properly. Okay, so in order to avoid that condition, the circular polarization radiation is used in many applications like satellite communication, in GPS. So in the circular polarization, like the antenna radiates nearly same radiation in a plane. Okay, so there is there is a flexibility in the orientation of transmitter and receiver. So in order to get a circular polarization from a microstrip patch antenna, there is like we need two orthogonal modes, and they has to be have a phase difference of 90 degree. Okay, so they have to be excited simultaneously. So CP microstrip patch antenna are designed by using two or more feed or making some modification in radiating patch. So there are two techniques. One is using two or more feed, and other is using some modification in the radiating patch. So here this schematic, this two schematic which is being shown here is the we are using multiple feed, multiple feed. So here you can see that this is a like a so here it is multiple feed. Take the one port this port 1 is there and port 2 is there, and it is a 90-degree hybrid. So it is going to allow equal power in the port 3 and port 4, and these two like ports are having a phase difference of 90 degree. Okay, so when now it is this square patch is excited, then it is going to this is a square patch, so it is going to generate like two orthogonal modes will be generated simultaneously and with a 90 degree phase. So it is a square patch. So TMX010 and 001. So these two modes is going to be excited simultaneously with a 90 degree phase difference. And similarly here also it is a single feed only, but here it is a power divider and with a phase difference of lambda by 4 or 90 degree. So this patch is again excited with like two orthogonal modes is going to be generated with a 90 degree phase difference, which is going to provide a circularly polarized radiation. Now coming to this like the first technique, like we are going to make proper we are going to make some changes in the patch so that we are going to excite the two modes simultaneously with orthogonal two orthogonal modes simultaneously with a 90 degree phase difference. So here is one of the technique, like it is a nearly square patch and it is fed through the diagonal. And here it is again a square patch fed diagonally. So this is going to provide a left-handed circular polarization. This is going to provide the right-handed circular polarization. Again, it is like patch with a slot cut in the diagonal. Here also, this is right-hand circular, left-hand circular, and here it is patch with edges trimmed. Okay. So feed, we can provide a feed at 0.1 or 0.3. So what is going to provide the CP radiation? Now coming to the design part. So in order to have a more clear understanding, so just I'm going to show some simulation results in CST Micro Studio. So here it is LP patch is designed at a frequency of 2.42 gigahertz on a substrate with dielectric 2.2, and I have not mentioned the loss tangent. Loss tangent is 0.009 and thickness is 3 mm. So width of substrate, length of substrate, and or width of the ground, length of ground we are taking as 130 mm and patch is taken as 38 mm. So if we choose these dimensions, we are getting a resonance close to around 2.42 gigahertz. So this is a reflection coefficient. So reflection coefficient, the frequency band where the reflection is less than minus 10 dB, we consider as the usable bandwidth of the patch antenna. So this is the first condition, like for like whenever we are designing an antenna, the first step is that we have to check the reflection coefficient and we consider the frequency, range of frequency where reflection is better than or reflection is less than minus 10 dB as the usable bandwidth. Okay. So in the usable bandwidth, we have not checked the radiation pattern. So 3D radiation pattern we have checked at 2.42 gigahertz. So at 2.42 gigahertz, you can see that the radiation is like perpendicular to the plane of patch. So here it is broadside. So the radiation, the maximum radiation is 8.4 dB. So gain of this antenna is 8.4 dBi, and efficiency is also like minus 0.11. It is close to 90%. So gain is around 8.144 dB, and radiation efficiency is 0.11 and total efficiency is 0.39. So in the total efficiency, we are taking the factor of reflection loss also into account. So overall, like gain is 8.144 and efficiency is minus 0.39. So this is the realized gain, and if we talk about the directivity, it will be like 8.144 minus, if we do the radiation efficiency, then it is going to provide a directivity also. So if, sorry, 8.14 plus 1.11, so it will be around 8.25 will be around the directivity. So this is the radiation pattern in the like two planes. So one plane is like if we talk about the feed, so feed is along the y direction. So if we cut this pattern in the your two plane, one is the yz and another is the xy plane. So if we like if you are cutting the pattern only in the yz plane, so yz plane is the plane where you are going to provide the feed also. So electric field is basically directed in the y direction and maximum radiation is directed along z. So plane containing the electric field vector and direction of maximum radiation is the E plane. Okay, so we can say that the yz plane is the E plane of the this patch antenna, and the like perpendicular to the E plane is going to be the H plane, or H plane is the direction of maximum radiation and magnetic field vector. So this H plane is your XZ plane. Okay. So coming to the E plane, so E plane is the YZ plane. So YZ plane, this your echo, which is this red one, is basically the E theta. E theta is the red one, and cross is the your black one. That is the cross polarized is the E pi. And coming to the H field, so H field your H theta or E phi. Basically, E phi is going to be the co-polarized component, or we can call that H theta is the co-polarized component in the H field, and your E theta or H phi is going to the cross-polarized component. Okay, so this H field is basically your XZ plane in this patch antenna. Now coming to the surface current distribution. So now current distribution, if you see on the patch, you can see this current is basically, if you see at t equal to 0, t by 4, t by 2, 3t by 4, t. So all you can see that current is every time it is oriented in one line only. Okay. So this is the direction, like the current, like, so it is every time it is along this, if you consider this direction as y, so every time this current is along y direction only. So we can say that the patch is linearly polarized in one direction, okay, or in one plane. So this is the characteristic of the linear polarization, that every time it is oriented in one plane only. Like this is the current, or if you see the electric field also, it will also be in one direction or in one plane only every time. Now coming to the circularly polarized patch antenna. So in the circular, to generate a circularly polarized patch antenna, so this, we are basically cutting a slot in the center. So this technique of feeding is basically your quarter wave transformer technique. So here this is like 50 ohm microstrip line, and this is the edge of patch. So to match the patch, like at the edge, the impedance is around 250 to 300 ohm, and the input feed is 50. So we are using a quarter wave transformer to achieve the impedance matching. So this is the quarter wave transformer, and to achieve the circular polarization, we are basically cutting a slot in the along the diagonal of the patch. Okay. So by adjusting the slot dimension, so we can excite this two mode, since it is a square patch. So Tm, like z is the direction of propagation, broadside direction. So it will be Tm to z 001 and Tm to z 010 mode. So we will be exciting these two mode together with a phase difference of 90 degrees. So this is the plot of the reflection coefficient. So reflection is better than 10 less than 10 dB in this band. It is around 2.39 to 2.47 gigahertz. This is the like impedance bandwidth. So percentage is the like fractional impedance bandwidth, that is F2 FH minus FL by FH plus FL by 2. So it is coming out to be 3.29%. Now axial ratio is a measure of the circular polarization. So for the ideal circular polarization, we want axial ratio to be equal to 0 dB. But for axial ratio less than 3 dB, we are going to consider the tolerable or permissible limit for the circular polarization. So axial ratio less than 3 dB means the two orthogonal components of the radiated field are close to each other and they are within 3 dB. Okay. So they are equal to, they are within 3 dB of each other. So here we are getting the axial ratio less than 3 dB in the band of 2.41 to 2.43 gigahertz. So this fractional bandwidth is 1%. Okay. So if we talk about the overlapping band of the impedance and axial ratio, it is the axial ratio only, that is 1%, 2.41 to 2.43 gigahertz. So coming to the radiation, so radiation is again like if we talk about the 3D radiation, so it is again the absolute gain is again 8.04 dBi and efficiency is around minus 0.17 dBi radiation efficiency. So this now in the like the two planes YZ and XZ, we will be talking about the left hand circular and right hand circular polarization components. Okay, because now in this case your E theta and E phi is going to be nearly equal in both the planes. So we will be talking about the handedness of the circular polarization. So in the present case, the right hand circular polarization component is very much stronger compared to the left hand circular components, and the difference between the both is around you can see it is around better than more than 15 dB. So here also it is more than 15 dB. So RSCP is going to be the co-polarized component and LSCP is the cross-polarized component. Now coming how we are going to get the right hand circular polarization component. So if we see the current distribution at time 0, T by 4, T by 2, 3T by 4 and T, we can see that this current is basically moving in a like you can see it is moving in a counterclockwise direction. So here it is in this direction. Now if you see it is moving in this like it is rotating counterclockwise. Now here at this time t equal to 0 it is horizontal. Now it is again becoming slightly tilted. Now it is becoming vertical. Now it is again becoming tilted in the opposite direction. So it is rotating in the counterclockwise direction. If you clearly look at the current distribution plot, so counterclockwise rotation, and if you try to rotate the fingers of right hand and with the thumb pointing in the z direction, which is the direction of maximum radiation. So then you can see that the rotation is a right uh, this sort of rotation we are going to achieve through the right hand fingers of a right hand thumb. So this is a right handed circular polarization. Okay, so the radiation is a right hand circular polarization. So the co-polarized is the right hand circular and left hand circular, which is going to be the cross polarized. So now coming to about a printed dipole antenna. So a dipole antenna in the printed configuration is now very popular, and generally like in the today's antenna design. So this property of the like thin wire dipole is explored in the printed form, and a printed dipole antenna is also like there is many forms of like printed dipole antenna like quasi Yagi uh, or lambda by 4 monopole or like PFA. So many other forms are used in the like today's antenna designs, but the principal dipole antenna is like if you are aware of the principles of principal dipole antenna, printed dipole antenna, then the property can be applied in other way also. Okay, because like in a printed dipole, if we want to excite this lambda by 2 dipole, if we want to excite the half wavelength radiation mode, we are basically excited. We have to excite a dipole at the center. Like similarly for a quarter wave monopole, we are basically taking the half of the dipole and we are exciting it at the end. That is for the quarter wave monopole. But for the dipole, we are exciting it at the center. So if in the printed configuration, we have just taken the dipole to be of length of 44, width of 2, and I have not mentioned the substrate. It is printed on a substrate, so it is in this case it is a like a FR4 substrate of 0.8 mm thickness. So if we this excite this dipole through its center through a like a 50 ohm lump port, we are going to get this sort of reflection coefficient. So the reflection is better than 10 dB in a band of around 2.4 to 2.6 gigahertz. Okay, and if we see the surface current distribution, so again this current is is every time this current is either it will be along the dipole only. So this is again showing the linear polarization characteristic of the dipole antenna. Like with the variation of time, the current is always oriented along the length of the dipole only. Okay. Now coming to the radiation, so this like the dipole is oriented in the y direction. So we can see that along the y direction we are going to get a null, and there is radiation like constant radiation in the plane perpendicular to the dipole. So the plane perpendicular to the dipole is going to be the this is the plane like xz plane is the perpendicular to dipole. So if we plot the radiation pattern in the XZ plane, we can see this radiation is nearly constant. And if we plot in the this in the plane like YZ plane, okay. So in the plane parallel to the dipole like YZ plane, we are going to get a 8 shape pattern. So this circular, the plane where the radiation is nearly constant, so that is basically the H plane of the dipole. H plane means the plane containing the magnetic field vector and direction of maximum radiation, and E plane is the plane containing the electric field vector and direction of maximum radiation. So H plane is the XZ plane and E plane is the YZ plane. So this sort of the radiation is also called as the omnidirectional. So the omnidirectional means the radiation is constant in one plane and it is directional in the other plane. So the gain, if you talk about the gain is around 2.89 dBi. So now, like since the dipole is a balanced line, so we cannot feed it directly using a microstrip or a coax line, because the microstrip and the coax line are generally unbalanced line. So we will be using a balance. So that is the balance to unbalance, like a transition between the balance to the unbalanced line. So if you are using the feed using a microstrip line, so you can see that this sort of structure is called as the microstrip to broadside coupled strip line transition. So at this end it is a balanced line, and at this end it is a unbalanced microstrip line. So this sort of transition is basically used to feed the dipole antenna. So you can see this is the schematic of this balance to unbalance transition. So this my dipole fed using a microstrip to broadside coupled strip line transition. And to characterize the performance of this transition, it is like two transitions are connected in back-to-back configuration, and we are basically measuring the insertion loss. So insertion loss and the reflection. So reflection is better than less than minus 15 dB in the entire band of 1 to 5 gigahertz, and insertion loss is also like very flat, varying. It's like between minus 0.1 to maybe around 2 dB in this band. So this we show that it has a it is behaving like a all pass filter. So this structure is of good performance, and now it can be used as a feed network for the dipole antenna. So this is the way of practically feeding the dipole antenna, so that the unbalanced current of the flowing in this microstrip feed is not going to affect the performance of the this balanced line dipole antenna. So these are like balance means like we like this radiation characteristic of the dipole, which is the omnidirectional nature, is not going to be much affected if we are going to feed the dipole through this uh, this transition network, or microstrip to broadside coupled strip line transition. So now coming to the equivalent circuit model. So equivalent circuit model of dipole can also be determined using um, by going through the input impedance plot. Like the input impedance means the real and imaginary part of the input impedance. If we are having the real and imaginary part of input impedance, so we can calculate the equivalent circuit parameters of the dipole antenna. Okay, so this dipole is basically modeled using this parallel RLC circuit and a series C0 L0, and CF is basically the feed capacitance. Okay, so like this the equivalent circuit of the dipole is determined, you can be determined using the method described in this reference. So this is the details, I'm not discussing it in detail, so it can be found in this reference. So basically so this is like this model is valid only on a in some particular frequency range. It is not valid over the full frequency range. Like if we talk in the like 1 to 5 gigahertz, So like we can try to like to we can ensure a proper fit of this circuit simulation response and the HFSS simulation, which is the distributed model. So this input, the real part of input impedance and the imaginary part of input impedance has to be matched properly. So then if we are basically getting a good match in some frequency, then so we can say that this is the equivalent circuit of the dipole antenna in this particular frequency range. So this is the again like if we so the reflection coefficient, so there is a good match between the circuit and the HFSS simulation. Now coming to the input impedance of a dipole antenna. So dipole antenna, if we talk about a dipole antenna, so this dipole antenna is resonating at around 2.5 gigahertz. So below the resonance frequency, the input impedance is of capacitive nature. Okay. So imaginary part is like negative, so we can say that it is a capacitive behavior. Now if we like connect some sort of like ring sort of structure and print a dipole on like this one is like the dipole is printed on two sides of the two sides of the substrate. So this dark one is on the top and this light one is on the bottom, and this dark one part is now brought to the bottom using a VR, and then it is fed through a 50 ohm lump port. Okay, so same thing here also. It's a dipole connected with a 1/4 vacant ring. So 1/4 vacant ring is a ring is there where is one of the quarter is absent. Okay, so this is the ring. So this sort of ring is basically used as a phase delay line. So like by controlling this radius and width of the ring, we can basically control the input impedance behavior of the dipole antenna. So we know that this dipole generally have a capacitive behavior below the resonance. So if we choose this ring or a dipole with ring connected with a ring, so then we can have by proper choice of this radius, we can get an inductive behavior of this dipole. Okay. So due to this capacitive and inductive behavior, if we calculate this the phase difference of the input impedance, like this is like a y-directed dipole and this one is the x-directed dipole. So if we calculate this phase difference of the input impedance, so we can say that the input impedance, the phase difference can be brought close to 90 degree if we choose the proper dimensions of the ring. Okay, so phase difference is close to 90 degree. So now if we place the dipoles in a cross configuration, okay, so one of the dipole like both, you can see that so this is the feed dipole. So this the feed dipole is the x-directed dipole, and this y-directed dipole is basically is basically excited. Like it basically like connected this y-directed dipole is connected to this 1/4 vacant ring to the x-directed dipole. So this by proper choice of this the radius of ring, so we can control the phase difference between the x and y directed dipole, and we can subsequently achieve a circular polarization. Okay, so we can achieve a 90 degree phase difference. So since the dipoles are orthogonally oriented, so the modes are is already orthogonal, and if the modes are excited with a 90 degree phase difference, so we can get a circular polarization. So this like we can see that this is the variation of the reflection coefficient and axial ratio with the ring radius. So at a ring radius of 2 mm, you can see that there is like axial ratio is very close to 0 dB. So we can say that a circular polarization is going to be achieved for a ring radius of 2.2 mm. Okay. So now this is the like reflection coefficient and axial ratio plot, and this is the gain plot. So the overlapping band of this reflection and axial ratio is basically axial ratio less than 3 dB is going to be taken as the operating band of the circularly polarized cross dipole antenna. And in this operating band, if you see that your right-handed circular polarization is going to be the copolar and left-handed is the cross polar. So this is the gain in the broadside direction. Okay. So circularly polarized cross dipole antenna is going to radiate a RSCP radiation in the broadside direction or theta equal to 0 direction. So now this is again the current distribution. Now if you see the current distribution, like T equal to 0, the current is vertical, and T equal to T by 4, the current is horizontal. So now if you try to look into the current distribution, so you can see that the current is basically following a counterclockwise path of rotation. So like it is along minus y, and then it is along plus x, and then again plus y, and then again plus y, and then it is again minus x. So it is following a counterclockwise rotation. So again it is going to provide a RSCP radiation in the broadside direction. So but if you, since the cross dipole is in free space, so it is a bidirectional radiation pattern with the RSCP in the theta equal to 0 direction and LSCP in the theta equal to 180-degree direction. Okay. So this is in the two planes. Okay, so I have not mentioned the plane, but it is basically the your XZ and YZ planes. Okay, so radiation in the XZ and YZ. So now to get a unidirectional radiation pattern, so a cavity deflector back, this cross dipole can be used with a reflector. So here I have used a cavity backed reflector. So it's a normal reflector with 4 additional metal walls, and again the feeding is done using this broadband microstrip to broadside couple strip line transition. So, and like this cavity wall in the bottom hole is like drilled, so that we can provide the connector can be connected to the microstrip line, SMA connector. So this is the comparison of operating bandwidth and gain of the cross dipole. So free space, this was the parameter like 2.24 to like impedance bandwidth was larger. So if you talk about the operating overlapping CP bandwidth, so it is 7.5 in free space. In cavity PEC backing, if there is only PEC back reflector, it is 7.33, and cavity backing is providing a better performance compared to the free space and PEC. And gain wise, the cavity is better than PEC also. It is 8.7 dBIC, and the better we are getting because we are now getting a unidirectional radiation pattern. In the free space we were getting the bidirectional, and now in the using the cavity it is a unidirectional radiation pattern. So this is the electric field distribution on the cavity walls. So one is the inner wall and other is the outer wall. So if the you can see that there is a electric field on the inner wall and very less electric field on the outer wall. So we can say that the electric field is being concentrated by the cavity walls, and that is helping in the enhancement in the gain. Okay. So this is the fabricated view of the structure. So this was this work was done in my PhD work at IIT Kanpur. So here it is top view, and this is the 3D view, like isometric view, and this is with the cavity reflector. So this was the the measurement setup. So it is a broadband horn antenna in the transmitting side, and receiving side is the test antenna, and they are connected to the 2 ports of vector network analyzer. And this S21 is going to give the measure of the power transmitted, power received by the test antenna. Okay. So this was the comparison of simulated and measured reflection coefficient, axial ratio. This is the simulated and measured axial ratio, and gain. Okay. So there was a close agreement between the simulated and measured one, and this is the radiation pattern. So this is the E theta and E phi component. So since it is circular polarization, so these two components is going to be nearly equal. And if we calculate the RSCP and LSCP, so we can see in the broadside direction, this RSCP is going to be the copolarized component. And this is the simulated and measured operating bandwidth. So operating measurement, we have got a operating bandwidth of around 22.9% with a gain of 8.27 dBi for the cavity reflector back cross cycle. So now coming to one more very important concept of a Yagi-Uda antenna. So basically, like we know that in a Yagi antenna, there is parasitic dipoles are there. It's like a array of one is the driven element and two is the parasitic element. So driven means the element where we are going to provide a feed. That is the driven element. So in this case, you can see there is three dipoles are there. So this center dipole is basically the driven one because we are going to feed this dipole, and this dipole has a length LD and width WD. And there is two parasitic dipoles. So width is basically kept same, like WP is equal to WD, and this this length of these dipoles LP1 and LP2. So if we vary this length of these dipoles, so the radiation pattern is going to change for the overall antenna. So if let's say if you don't have these parasitic elements, then this driven dipole is going to provide a omnidirectional radiation pattern. Like it is going to have a constant radiation in the H plane. So H plane is basically the YZ plane. So in the YZ plane, it is going to have a constant radiation. But with the use of the parasitic elements, so we can alter the radiation pattern. Again, coming to the spacing, DP. The spacing is also of interest. So spacing is, we have taken as close to 50 mm. So 50 mm is basically your around 0.3 lambda. So the spacing is also a matter of concern. So it is around 0.25 to 0.3 lambda if we keep the spacing around 0.3 lambda. So then there will be the effect of this there will be significant effect of this parasitic dipoles on the radiation pattern of this driven element. Okay, so now coming to this length, when the length of these two LP1 and LP2 is 38 mm and the center one is 44 mm, so length of this dipole is 44 mm. So if we keep it as 44, it is around close to, I think, around 0.37 or 0.38 lambda naught in the printed configuration. So this all is printed on a FR4 substrate of thickness 0.8 mm. So in the printed configuration, so this dipole is the dipole is if we talk about this the electrical end of dipole in terms of its resonance frequency. So the dipole is around 0.37 lambda naught at the resonance frequency. So if this dipole is surrounded by two parasitic elements with a length of 38, so 38 is 0.32 and 0.32. So then what is, then we are calling it as the one of the configuration. So in this configuration, we are going to get this sort of radiation. So this radiation is basically your end fire. Here maximum you are getting along plus y and minus y. So if we are having like these two parasitic element is going to behave like a director. We call it as a director. So these two parasitic elements, if they are acting like a director, then it is going to concentrate the radiation in the end fire direction. That is in the plus y and minus y direction. Okay, so we are going to get a bidirectional end fire radiation. Now coming to the configuration 2. So configuration 2, this LP1 is 50 and LP2 is 50. Okay, so both is this 50 is greater than this 44 mm, and this is around 0.42 lambda naught and 0.42 lambda naught. So this is basically, we can call this parasitic element as the as working as a reflector. So if the parasitic elements are working like a reflector, we are going to get a broadside radiation, means radiation will be in the plus z direction, plus z and minus z direction. So it is a bidirectional broadside pattern. And if we coming to the configuration 3, like configuration 3 is that this LP1 is 38 and LP2 is 50. So if LP1 is 38 and LP2 is 50, so then we are going to get a unidirectional end fire radiation. Means the maximum will be like this, LP1 is 38 and LP2 is 50. So I think, sorry, there is a change. Like this should be configuration 3 and this will be configuration 4. So if this is the director, so what is going to happen? This energy will be concentrated in the direction of director. Okay. So if it is concentrated along the direction of director, so we are going to get a radiation in the minus y direction, and this one is going to act like a reflector. Okay, so there will be no radiation in the plus y direction. Similarly, we can have like maximum radiation along plus y and minimal along minus y using the this configuration. Like if we take like your LP2 as the 38, that is the LP2 is the director and LP1 as the reflector. So now coming this is the reflection coefficient. So the overlapping bandwidth is going to be treated as the overlapping bandwidth. So overlapping bandwidth between the three configurations is going to be treated as the usable bandwidth for the this Yagi-Uda antenna. So here this like the usable bandwidth, like this like every, like in all three configurations the bandwidth is different, but we are going to take the overlapping bandwidth as a usable bandwidth. And here you can see that how like this black one is the reference dipole, that is the omnidirectional radiation pattern, and when the in the three configuration, how the pattern is being changed in the H plane. So H plane, when there is like only reference dipole, it is omnidirectional, and when the H plane, you can see if the both directors we are using. So if the directors are using, we are getting the end fire, that is the black, this is the red pattern. And if we are getting, if we are taking both as the reflector, so that is the blue curve, that is the broadside, and one as the director and one as the so here we are taking like if one is if we are taking like middle one, like LP1 equal to LP2 equal to 44, so that is going to give a omnidirectional only. So if you one as a director and other as a reflector, is going to provide a unidirectional end fire pattern. So now like the same thing, like same concept can be utilized, can be achieved using a varactor diode. So in this case, like the driven, like the parasitic element is fitted with varactors, which can also be treated as the variable capacitance. So variable capacitance, so C1 and C2 is like we are taking as the variable capacitance of this this LP1 and LP2. So like the varactor diode, we have to do the biasing. So biasing is done using thin copper strip, and thin, like we have to use a very thin copper strip for the biasing line, and they have to be embedded using the inductors. So inductor is used so that your RF, like the RF signals should not go into the DC bias lines, and so that these DC bias lines is not going to affect the radiation performance. Okay. So now in this case, like if we take the capacitance value C1 and C2, like vector, like if you are basically when you are feeding the when you are giving a bias to the vector, so when we are changing the voltage of the biasing, so capacitance is going to change. Capacitance is going to change of the vector diode. So when the capacitance is 0.1 picofarad for both C1 and C2, then this two parasitic element is going to work like a director. So if the parasitic element is going to work like a director, we are going to get a bidirectional end fire. And if the capacitance is 1.1 and 1.1, they are going to work like a reflector. And if the capacitance is zero point 0.1 and 1.1, it is the director. Like LP1 is going to work like a director and LP2 is the reflector. So we are going to get a unidirectional end fire. And for the other case, like if C1 is 1.1 and C2 is zero point 0.1, so it will be also providing a unidirectional end fire, but in the opposite direction. Okay. So again, the concept of pattern reconfigurability in this case is basically achieved through the tunable design. Earlier it was we have done using just varying the length of the parasitic element, but in this case the length of this parasitic element, this is constant. Like dipole is 44 and parasitic element is kept as 55. Okay, so this parasitic elements, the length is kept 55, and only thing is that we are basically embedding vector diode at the center of the parasitic element. So if the vector like capacitance is basically tuned, like if you are basically changing the capacitance of this vector diode, so this the electrical length of this parasitic element is changing, and by changing the electrical length of this parasitic element, we are able to control the radiation pattern from end fire to broadside and unidirectional end fire. Okay. So the prototype was fabricated also, and there is a like comparison of the H-plane radiation pattern. So H-plane radiation pattern for the three configuration, and there is a close agreement between the simulated and measured radiation pattern. And this is the reflection coefficient, and the overlapping band is going to be treated as the usable bandwidth of the reconfigurable antenna. Okay, so with this, I'm just I have completed my presentation. So, like, if there is any query, so I will be try to help you, and that will be a matter of learning for me also.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saurabh,
Yes,
for
sir.
your very interesting session. Hello, Dr. Saurabh, am I audible?
Yes, 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 sir. You are audible. So I'm waiting for any question from the audience if there is.
Yeah. So, dear participants, the house is open for discussion. So, Dr. Saurabh has started from the basics and in an interesting way. He has highlighted various trends which are going on in research of microstrip patch antennas. And during this one session, he has covered almost every aspect of research areas which are currently going on in this microstrip patch antenna. So maybe these are reconfigurable of pattern and other things. So if there are any questions, then you can unmute yourself or you can write in the chat box. Dr. Saurabh, I would like to ask one small query. So,
Yes.
how the material characteristics, like characteristics of substrate, so how these are decided for microstrip patch antennas? So is yeah, right, like in the starting you have told that these are the minimum and maximum range. So basically I want some input from your side, like what are the suitable values, whether towards lower end of the epsilon or the higher end, or how will it affect the properties?
So lower end of the epsilon R is like better. Like if we want to design like antenna, lower end, like if we choose dielectric constant more closer toward 1, like if we take as 2.2 in the lower side, because commercially available substrate, as per my knowledge, the this we are is available for 2.2, not lesser than that. So if we go with the lower side like 2.2, so the lower dielectric constant, the means substrate, like it will allow like patch will be able to radiate more freely. Okay, if we choose a low dielectric constant substrate. Okay, but the disadvantage is that if you are choosing a low dielectric constant, the size of the patch or antenna is going to be larger. But if we talk about the radiation efficiency or less spurious radiation from the feed, so lower dielectric constant substrate is going to be preferred. We will be choosing in the close to 2.2 range. And thicker substrate is also desirable for patch antenna.
Right, sir. Right. Because actually we are working towards the 3D printed antennas, where we are trying to interact with the epsilon R. So that will be
Means like if you choose a high dielectric, it is like the effect is that we will be getting a compact circuit. So that is again an advantage. Lower dielectric, the circuit is going to be larger. So those trade-off we have to maintain. Like if we choose a lower dielectric, our efficiency will be better, but the size will be larger. But since we want that circuit to be compact, then we have to choose a higher dielectric.
right, sir. Right. Right, sir. Thank you. Sir, there is one question in the chat. What will be the effect on bandwidth for lower dielectric substrate?
So lower dielectric, the bandwidth will be better. Moment we are choosing higher dielectric, so bandwidth will be becoming like there will be effect on bandwidth also. So bandwidth will be more narrow if we choose the higher dielectric.
Right, sir. So, is any other query from the participant side? Sir, I think there are no further queries. Sir, will you share your PPT for further sharing with the participants?
Yes, I can mail you.
Okay, so kindly you email to me, then I will share with further with the participants.
Okay.
And sir, we also sharing the recorded sessions with the participants. So your participants.
Basically, this whatever like I presented, that was just since the session is for the basics, so I didn't go into the much more research on like current trend, like current like compact antenna, multiband antenna, wideband antenna. So those things I have not covered. I just covered some general topic for the generation of circular polarization and the concept of Yagi, reconfigurable Yagi antenna. So these the general concepts are there, but I will share. I will share the email.
Yeah. So, Dr. Saurabh, so now I think it's time to thank you for giving us a very good start to the STC. So, your particular session has set a pace for STC. So, you have highlighted so many concepts and so many important points related to microstrip antennas. So, I hope the session will be very helpful for the participants who are working in this area. So, I thank you for your time for delivering this session. So, and I will be inviting you for further STCs also, and I hope you will accept our invitation.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
So,
Thank
sir,
you
I
very
am
much.
stopping the presentation and I'm just mailing you the presentation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
So, dear participants, So with this, we are at the end of the first technical part of the first session. So now I will be sharing one Google code in the chat box. So you are required to join uh, this Google Classroom using this code. So I have shared one code in the chat box. You can see and try to join Google Classroom using this code. So if there is any difficulty in joining, then we can like discuss that also. And I also request before leaving the session, I also request all the participants to introduce yourself in the chat box by writing your name, your designation, your institute, name and place, and your area of interest, like research area or the specialization area. So your name, your designation, institute name and address, and your specialization area. So that will be the way we'll be introducing ourselves to the others through the chat box. And for joining Google Classroom, you need to use Gmail ID. So no other ID will work. Even there are certain institutional IDs which at the back end are having Gmail, but that may not be allowed by this Google Classroom. So you need to use direct Gmail ID. So in case you have registered STC with some other some other email ID, then that will not be problem, because in Google Classroom it is compulsory to use Gmail. So that way you can write your name exactly same as that you registered, but you can use different email ID for joining Google Classroom. So kindly try to join Google Classroom. So if there is any uh, difficulty in that, so you can discuss with me. I request all the participants to also join Google Classroom, because till now only 5 participants have joined. 6 now, there are 6. Because there may be certain issues like joining in the Google Classroom, so that we can discuss right now. And in the chat box, I am seeing that there are many participants who have earlier also attended the my STCs, and there are certain participants who are personally known to me. So I thank all the participants for showing interest this in STC. So, and I hope that this STC will be helpful to all working in this domain of antenna fields. And our next session will be at 11:30. So we'll be starting at 11:30 sharp. So those participants who have introduced themselves, and I request them to join in the Google Classroom also.
Sir? Sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Google Classroom link, sir.
Yes, I am pasting this code. So
Okay,
you have
okay,
to
sir.
use this code.
Code.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
this code.
okay, okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir.
So I have, welcome, sir. So I have posted again the code to join Google Classroom. So those who have not
Okay.
earlier noted the code, so you can note down. Arjot, I think you can stop recording.
Hello.